Yeah, if you're so again, you want to consider this. I'm thinking of this in a kind of low budget, no budget term slash, which would be equivalent to like low poly games, low budget TV, low budget film. We want to try to minimize the layer of clothing. So since this shirt is fairly form fitted, I would consider that kind of undershirt part of the body or part of the base. The other thing is, if I'm looking at the body here, if I go to transparency, right? Okay, so there is no kind of extension there, which is good because the arms are basically going to, right, be that. And having the jacket off, so I would sort of keep this jacket as a solid piece. So I'd probably combine or is it a jacket and a vest? I'm not sure.
Just like a jacket.
Okay, a single jacket.
Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, some of these things, like if you want to maintain very specific shapes, it might be useful to have them be separate because that can be hard to retopologize. It looks like you've got a kind of low topology here, which is fine. You can even use sometimes a divided mesh as your base or basis for your mesh. So sometimes I'll use what's already there. One other thing you can do, it's funny, I used to do this in a software I used before Maya called 3ds Max. Big in architecture and design, but it does a lot of the same stuff as Maya. Yeah, under modify topology, where is it? Modify geometry, modify topology. There is a little area in here called, sorry, is it modify topology or edge loops? Edge loops, sorry. Edge loop, there's something called delete loops, which is kind of amazing. I'll delete the high poly, or at least, yeah, I'll delete it temporarily. I'll probably bring it back. So I'll go to delete higher. Delete loops will actually try to optimize your mesh. So anything over a certain curvature or under a certain curvature will be maintained. So you can play with that number, like drop the angle a bit, right? And preserve some loops. So that can be really interesting to kind of create a simpler, lower res mesh. There's a bit of mess on this side of the model, right? Compared to the other side, there's kind of this weird star pattern, but that would be okay actually potentially as a low poly mesh. Again, I usually like to have more evenly dispersed polygons, especially in clothing. You want fairly straightforward density, I would say, like fairly consistent density. And I usually try to avoid thickness. So this thing does have a thickness, right? So again, I will try. I don't know if it's going to work, but the easiest way is to go into group by normals. Yeah, I may have to drop that number down a bit. Group by normals, I'll usually go in 15-degree increments, so like 45, 30, 15, or somewhat semi-off increments like that. Yeah, see, I can't quite get the split to happen there, but... So I'll try to go down to 15, which can make things a little bit challenging, but we'll try. 15 or 20 maybe. Yeah, I'll go to 20. Yeah, the main point being is that I want to delete the interior shell essentially, okay?
It's really funny because it started off as just a flat plane and I made it.
Yeah, I would say in that case, yeah, you want to kind of maybe go back. If you have the original...
I think that was before I made it smoother, so that
Yeah.
very detailed.
So sometimes too, as a little trick, what you can do is if you hit WER, which is your move, scale, rotate, right, and you control click on that polygroup, this base vest, I'll keep that masked. Oops. And then I'll switch back to Q, which is your kind of drawing. And then I'll mask this, okay? Unhide that. And if you hit Control W, that becomes one solid group like this. Okay? I'll go to double-sided. Let's see. Display double. There we go. So now I can kind of get rid of all those thickness loops as well. You see that, right? Because inside of both Unreal and Arnold in Maya, you can create a material that is simply double-sided. And when you have, when you have a mesh that's like thin, it's hard to control mesh with a thickness, all right? So one thing you can do, which I often do, is either through previewing or as you're sculpting, you can go into dynamic subdivision, enable dynamic. I usually don't like the smooth display. I'll sometimes use it as a check to see that it's going to look the same way in Maya, because that is very close to Maya's smooth preview, which is 3 on your keyboard, right? But what you can do is actually give your clothing a thickness, right? So this can give you, again, a bit of a preview of what the clothing looks like extruded, essentially. Now, again, I can see there's some errors here as well. Like there's some mesh I probably need to clean up, some of these extra edges, right? So I would kind of clean up some of those little kind of rough areas.
And that extruding is where, sorry?
It's under dynamic subdivision. And then you turn on thickness. So go to delete hidden there. So usually this will kind of help you see, and then you can hit Shift D and D to enable this kind of quickly. Shift D to turn it off, D to turn it on. So again, yeah, I'll try to hide the excess loops if I can. Not just hide, but delete. So delete hidden, hit D, right? And can sort of be a bit of a guidepost in terms of what you're seeing. Yeah, there we go. Do auto group as well, just to quickly isolate that little island, delete hidden. D, there you go. So you see that kind of nice, crisp, sharpness that we see. And again, you can control the thickness. So I'm not using the smoothness here. I would actually just still divide this up to sculpt, let's say. Okay. By the way, this issue as well of this kind of region, I would try to probably do some sort of bridging. So where there's a regular loop on either side, okay, if you hold Alt, this will give you kind of temporary polygrouping, like so. Then you can hover over this and say delete polygroup, bye-bye. And then I'll go to, yeah, let's see. How am I going to do this? Yeah, I'll try to bridge, I guess. I'll see if I can bridge edge to edge. By the way, if you do bridge, I'll hover over this with spacebar. Maybe I'll try, I can't really do 2 holes, but yeah, usually with 2 holes you actually get some options here. So yeah, it won't let me do that here, unfortunately. So I'll try to go across here. Sorry, just regular bridge. So I'll do the same thing back and forth. Okay. Okay, and then I'll go to inserts, insert single loop. You can do multiple if you wanted to. That can help. So again, that's without wanting to, like, if I hit remesh, it could destroy a bunch of shapes. So this is one of the reasons why I'm doing it this way. And then I'll simply go to, yeah, I'll do this in vertex mode. Okay. Yeah, let's switch to skin shade 4. It can be a little easier to see. It's a little brighter. Oops. There we go. So that's kind of taken care of for the most part. And I'm just holding shift and then letting go. This is actually one of my favorite techniques for kind of averaging out a surface. So now, if this is divided, right, it should divide a lot better. Let me just hit divide. Oops. Let's make sure I'm not hiding any mesh here. Divide. So it's going to divide a lot better, okay? So it's a lot smoother. And this can just be one polygroup again. Okay, so there's still some issues in and around the vest, but okay, let's turn off dynamic for a second. Yeah, so these little areas too, we can kind of clean some of these little troublesome areas up. Okay. Delete hidden. I'll delete higher because I've got divisions and won't let me do that. So you can use this if you wanted to, by the way, if you're not sculpting but just wanting to test the smoothness as well, keep that on. And then if you want this to become real mesh, let's say at this division level, you simply go to apply and it will now become mesh with the thickness. So you've got the same topology inside and out, which means if you skin it, you'll have no issues with the inside of the jacket popping through the outside. So I usually wait till the very last moment to actually collapse that or make that thickness part of the clothing. Yes?
So if you want to skin it, we need thickness, basically.
It should have the same, yes. If you want to skin it with thickness, have like mesh that moves or clothing that moves realistically with just bones, which is simpler than cloth sim, maybe a little more efficient. Yes, then make sure the inner topology is the same as the outer. So then the skinning is basically duplicated, okay? The weighting, the skin weights. Okay? Okay, so for the rest of this, like I said, I would kind of consider the body, the pants. You can keep the strings again separate if you want to rig them for whatever animation. Even the shoes, like you can model shoes that are very, very intricate and detailed, right? They have like the overlapping laces, but ultimately I'll probably bake that down to just like a flat texture on the underlying base mesh of what the shoes will be. And for that too, you'd want to plan that there be no gaps as well, okay? So you'd want to try to correct that. So avoid any gaps and overlap. So yeah, my next step would probably be to take, let me just hide the vest for a second. Where's the vest? Yeah, so in a way I could actually kind of interestingly just merge the, let's do this, I'll merge those puffy arms. Yep.
That was the eyebrows.
Okay, let's solo. Yeah, and we should take out any expression too from the character, ideally. So no smiling and stuff like that, but that's not a big issue. Okay, so we'll get that down here. So merge down. Okay, we can also increase our visible tool count. That will help a bit. And there's the shoes. I'll keep the shoes separate for now because I feel like there's some other issues to deal with there. It's funny, this character is very 90s inspired, it feels like.
Yeah, it was supposed to be like a cross between like cyberpunk and like a 90s DJ.
Yeah. Yeah, and try to get a slight bend in the knees too. So even though I've kind of merged this, maybe I should have thought about this before, but you can control click on this. And then I'll, yeah, just from a side view, no perspective actually would be ideal. Reset my tool. I'm going to just give this thing a slight bend. And it'd be good to do that too in the arms, at the elbows. Again, where are the hands? Let's find the hands. Can't tell. Okay, there's the hands. So yeah, I'll merge the hands down basically into those. Merge down. And yeah, I often talk about splitting off the head from the... Is this all connected here? Yeah, that's all connected.
It was separated, but I connected.
Yeah, I'd probably split off the... At that shirt line, right, is a natural place to split. But for now, I can keep it as is, okay? Not a big deal. Oops. Okay, so... And do you have another version of the shoes where they're kind of like overlapping tools and stuff? Where they're overlapping tools, like pre-Dynamesh? Because the shoes look like they're Dynameshed.
They were, yes. I have a version that's low poly because I basically made them low poly in Maya and then brought them into ZBrush to make
Right.
them more high res.
Yeah, that's all right. Yeah, I'll just merge those down too for now. And we can just kind of use the move brush to pull The legs down and in. Okay. All right, so I'll solo this. So again, at this point, I would probably create a duplicate just in case of, you know, issues. This is 6 million. And again, I probably just need a quick Z-remesh. I should also double check. This is why I usually also spread the fingers out. Now, if the hands in this case are actually decent in terms of topology, I could probably just preserve them and keep them separate and overlapping. That's not a huge deal. So I'll basically split those for now, split hidden. Okay, I think those are split off again. And I'll just Dynamesh. This can be ultra low, by the way. This initial's Dynameshing. It doesn't have to be super high poly or super precise. And I'll usually turn off the paint. Now, I want to show you something interesting here. What you can do, because this has no poly groups, right? And I'm lazy. So what you can actually do is go to poly groups. Where is it? Poly groups. And say from poly paint. So it'll literally transfer. Did it work? Yeah, I think I have to turn on the paintbrush icon again here. So I'll turn on the paintbrush icon. Poly groups from poly paint. Where is it? From poly paint. Then if I hit Shift F, you now get these poly groups. The main one I wanted was kind of the arms, the pant legs, and then the legs themselves. That's fine. All right, so now you've actually got kind of these groupings. Let me try to auto group this as well. Auto group. There. And I'll just do a mirror and weld because I want to get a very simple symmetrical mesh. So again, I'm going to just try to quickly isolate this into... Yeah, oddly, let me just take a look at this. I'll turn off the line option too. It's sort of funny too. It seems like some of the groups are connected to the... Yeah, like if I isolate this, I'm going to Control Shift click on this. Again, I'll do auto group just so I'm not kind of connecting stuff I don't want to. Okay, so then I'll hide this. This is not Dynameshed yet, by the way, so keep that in mind. And it looks like I didn't get a separation here, but that's okay. I'm just going to hit Control W to have one big group there. Again, yeah, let me just separate this out. Okay. So now I'll Dynamesh together, and I'll drop the resolution. I don't need it to be super high because this is a temporary step for me to get low. By the way, if you have that little paint icon on, remember I said earlier, if that's on, it will erase your grouping work. So I'm going to just turn that off. And then Dynamesh again. I'll go quite low because it seems like this thing is actually Dynameshing quite high. And then we'll just check out the wireframe on top. Okay. So then I'll basically turn off Dynamesh, go to Z-Remesher, keep groups, go in half. I'll turn off detect edges and creases. I don't really need that at this point. And then simply Z-Remesh. So a lot of times the body topology is kind of the fastest, easiest thing. So again, just Z-Remesh in half and half and half. I would try to determine, I guess, where the elbows are. So I don't know if it's in the middle of this puff or at one of the seams. Yeah, that's the thing. So you might want to reconsider the design or the distribution of those puffs. You might want to make it lesser or greater than. So if you do have a loop in there, yeah, for some reason my ZBrush is not going over top of my Windows bar. There we go. I'll go to slice. So yeah, if the elbow's there, then you're going to have to have it there. Again, I'll go to mirror and weld. And by the way, if you don't have symmetry in your remeshing, the symmetry is based on whether your brush is symmetrical, no matter what brush it is. So you have to have symmetry on the brush for the remesh to be symmetrical. If you don't want symmetry, then you turn off symmetry on the brush, okay? So yeah, like I said, I would typically split off this shirt area, and we can do that here. Just I'll go to slice. And I'm not sure if it comes down in the back like that or not, but let's see. Yeah, not exactly. Okay. Yeah, in this case, I'm not going to worry about it too much. I'm just going to zero mesh again. Oh yeah, I should probably do the underwear loop here. Mirror and weld. So it's very quick, I find, at this stage to kind of get through retopologizing. So I'll get out of solo. I'm going to turn off. I'm going to shift click on basically everything but these two layers. Again, I'm not concerned too much with the head. So I'll go to project all. Project all. So I'll divide, and the projection is actually working out pretty good because I've dynameshed the high res together. So it's coming out as a solid shell. My computer fans are ramping up. So as you divide higher to capture the higher poly detail, it can take a bit longer. If you don't want to do the transfer of texture and color this way, you can just send it to Substance. Now I'm going to check out, there's a little issue here, and I'll show you why this might be an issue. Right? Got to check the low. I'm actually not sure if I did dynamesh them. I thought I did. Yeah, I think they're still technically like overlapping parts, actually. So let me just, yeah, it's actually overlapping. So it's getting confused between the two surfaces and then like going between the outer shell of the pants. So what you can do, and I sometimes will do this, if you go into project all, you can go to the furthest, which is the furthest point away. You can try that and see if that helps. Or outer actually will help too. So I'll go to outer. Sometimes a little smoothing and then quick reprojection. Then divide or step up in divisions. Again, I'll probably have to smooth this. Sometimes I'll just delete my divisions and start over, but project again. So it's going to the outermost point, okay? So divide again or step up in divisions. Again, if I have this mess, sometimes I'll just stick to this lower division and simply say delete higher and then just redivide, reproject, right? Because it's capturing that glitch from earlier, and I don't want it. Yes, so sometimes either dynameshing them together at high res to maintain the painting, or even sometimes I'll do, if they're overlapping well enough, I can also go to Boolean and just Boolean them together, because sometimes dynameshing will degrade the painting and the sculpting, whereas Boolean will not. Okay, so I'm going to go back to project all. With outer turned on, usually I'll turn it off at some point to see if I can get a better, cleaner projection of textures and things like that. So, going back to the shoes, again, try to make them a single solid shell with no overlap and gaps, okay? And then for the shoelaces, you can either paint them on or you can have them very low poly. Again, you don't want to like retopologize a bunch of shoelaces and then animate that, right? It's not the focus. So you can have like one or two bones if you wanted. Sure, that's fine. But or just leave them flat as a separate piece or paint it on. Paint it on, baked as a normal map, better, generally speaking, easier. So this is just projecting now. It's 3.5 million. It's a lot. It'll take a moment. I'm turning off outer now because I realize it's kind of going in between these two. Like it's not quite picking up the color. And if you feel like the geometry is fine, that's also great. You can just simply go to color only at this point if you wanted. So you don't necessarily lose any shape issue. Lose any shape that you're happy with. So again, I'll pause. Turn this off. There, it is a little bit cleaner. And sometimes you'll see this too. Like when you have an edge loop that's kind of riding between two different subtools. You may want to to actually nudge the poly loop so that it's fitting a little bit better between kind of pants and body there. And you can get this kind of splotchy looking texture as well. So sometimes dividing higher and projecting will help, or like I said, it's better to kind of go back to your low res and go into transparency, get out of solo. Maybe not be at the lowest division. I think the lowest division is probably a bit too low, in fact. So yeah, just nudging some of those loops into a better position can help. And then running through the projection again. I don't want to go through it because it does take a little bit of time. But this is basically, right, now in a state where it is fairly usable topology. Like I said, issues with the shoes, I'll quickly run those down. Yeah, sure. Okay, so yeah, this is good. I'm going to just turn off colorize because sometimes when mesh comes in. So yeah, this is what I was talking about earlier, these gaps between. I would really try to, because I don't know, you're just dividing all this stuff up, right? Yeah, I would try to basically, I'm going to just go to auto group on this, I think, for now. Sorry, let me go down and auto group. Yeah, I guess these are not split. These are all like attached and extruded, right?
Yeah.
It's a little bit messy, but I'll try group by normals. That can also help sometimes, just to kind of, yeah. So if you're going to Dynamesh this at some point, I would, and let's go to double-sided so I can see this. Yeah, it's a bit hard to kind of track what's going where, but yeah, either you can consider sort of like just making a simple shell and projecting to this as much as you can, although you'll have some issues. Or, yeah, really trying to remove the gaps. Like maybe you can separate off the panels here and thicken them so they overlap and then Dynamesh it all. Okay? Just because it's going to be really, really troublesome, I think, to get it to, like if I smooth this back, right? There's kind of floating panels in this little gap, this cavity. So all that stuff is going to be harder to deal with. So maybe a split would help. Oops. Okay, I'm just trying to hide that off. So Control-Shift-Alt to hide. Right? So then you could split that off, maybe thicken it, and Dynamesh it. Okay? Same thing with this gap here. You really want to hide the gap. Okay, so that will be, it's a bit challenging, but doable. Right, so basically eliminating any cavity, any hole in there. So that would be kind of my process, I think, at this point, is to keep the design ultimately, but just modify it so that we don't have gaps if we are going to divide this up, right? And if you do, oops, what am I doing here? What's happening? Having an issue. Yeah, I'm not sure if this had hidden parts to it. I just started dividing, and it's doing something weird, but anyways, that's the basic point. If you got lots of cavities, overlap, we want to try to minimize it and clean it up. All good?